everyone. Watch till the end of the video for a surprise. I'll see you there. Walmart Stalker by u/Jenny10126. When I was 18, I got a job at Walmart. It was a small town, so not much else there for someone fresh out of high school. I'd been there about a month and worked in the jewelry department, usually from mid-afternoon until the department closed at 9 p.m. And I would always close the department myself, but obviously, Walmart is open 24 hours, so other people were always around. One night, I'm locking the cases up and putting things away, and an overnight stalker walks by and says hi to me. I look up, smile, and say hi back and then go about my business. This guy, the only way I can describe him is to say that he looks like one of the Bee Gees. Shoulder-length frizzy hair, kind of a bouncy hop to his step when he walked, and around mid-50s. This started to become a regular thing. On nights that I closed by myself, he would walk by and say hi, and I would say hi back. And that's it. No conversations ever took place. But then on my birthday, a few of my friends who worked there got me cake, and I hugged them and said thank you and etc. About an hour later, Mr. Bee Gees comes around with a birthday card and gave it to my manager to give to me. Manager thought it was extremely funny that this weirdo got me a card. Well, until I opened it. Happy birthday. I saw you hugging those guys earlier. It made me really mad, but I called my friend and talked it out, and he made me realize that you're allowed to have friends other than me. Just please don't hug them anymore. Save those hugs for me. I don't know what kind of emotion showed on my face, but my manager grabbed the card and read it, then walked me back to the store manager's office and showed it to him. The store manager said that the guy was obviously joking, but that he would talk to him about it. I didn't see Mr. Bee Gees for around a week, until one night while I was closing. He plunked down a stuffed envelope on my counter as he walked by without a word. Inside was 6 pages front and back of pure crazy. It was basically his entire life story, all about his family and schools he went to, but with weird stuff like how his sister was a psychic and his father was an exorcist, and all sorts of weirdness. At the end of the letter was about how his friend, who was 18 months old, was missing, and that he knew that there was something being done to her because he could hear her screaming his names in his dreams. What the hell? So, that also went to the store manager, and he had me write a written complaint, and he told me not to go outside by myself and not to wander near where the guy might be while I'm on my breaks. No, get rid of him. 2 nights later, I was finishing up for the night, and the way the counter is set up, there is one opening and the counters go all the way around both sides. He brought a handcart around with boxes for my department, but pushed it into the only opening in the counters so that I was trapped inside. He just stood there and stared at me while I looked at him with what I'm sure was a face of terror. I was then and still am now riddled with anxiety. I don't like confrontation, and the last thing that I wanted was for this weirdo to confront me about reporting him twice. He whispers, "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." I turned around and started finishing my closing task, pretending that he wasn't even there, though I could feel him watching me. After a few minutes, I just looked at him and said, "Weren't you told to stay away from me?" He gave me this gross predator grin and said, "The store manager asked me if I was joking. I told him I was." Then he leaned in as close to me as he could get with a counter between us and whispered, But I'm not joking. Then he walked away. For 2 weeks after that, he would randomly show up wherever I was. I would leave for lunch and he would be there. Even non-work places. I would go to a mall and he would be there. Another department manager told me that he had been reported by 4 other people over the last 2 years for very similar behavior. And I again went to my store manager, who told me that the guy was harmless and maybe had a little bit of a crush. He was in his 50s and I was 18 or 19 during this crap. A week later, I gave my notice and quit. He still works there, 13 years later. It still gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Almost kidnapped from work by a random Walmart stranger. By username 2BlackButtonEyes. A couple years ago, I worked at this 24-hour diner. Sometimes I worked the night shift. One day, I was at Walmart after an afternoon shift I worked, in my really painfully recognizable uniform. The guy in front of me had these crazy eyes, and he was taking his sweet flippin' time bagging up his groceries, and he said hi, so I just said hi back. He was like, "Oh, you work at diner?" And I was like, "Yup." He left the store. I bagged my groceries and walked out a couple minutes later. Well, the guy was outside and saw me get in my car. He didn't follow me though, or so I thought. And that was that. So fast forward 2 weeks, I'm working night shift and it's 2 a.m. I was sitting outside smoking a cigarette and talking on the phone. This white van pulls up and guess who hops out? He was like, "Hey girl, I've been looking for you. You remember me, do you?" His eyes were bugging out of his head and he had a few buddies in his van. I stuck the phone in my pocket. He grabbed my wrist and started pulling me to the van and says, "Oh, come hang out with us." And I was just like, "Heck no, dude." I yanked away and started backing towards the door, and he kept asking if he could at least get my number. I just ran inside to the back and told my almost 7-foot-tall coworker who I got along really well with, and I'm still 99% sure has done some prison time, but they drove off. 2 nights later, one of the windows was shot out with a BB gun during a night shift that I, luckily, wasn't working, but my coworker said it was a bunch of dudes who drove by in a white van.
Walmart Guy Won't Let Me Leave by you/anxiety ridden. A few days ago, I decided to go to Walmart to pick up a few things. That day, I was wearing a bright dress with sunflowers printed on it. I wore my hair down, which is also a brighter blonde color. As I was shopping, I went down the international aisle to grab Mirin, and as I walked down, I felt eyes on me. I stood in front of the shelf stocked with different sauces and condiments, looking for Mirin, when a guy came so close to me that I had to look at him. The moment we locked eyes, he smiled and said, "Hi, how are you?" I instantly felt uneasy, so I said nothing, smiled at him, and then walked away. There is no particular reason that the man made me feel uneasy. He looked fine. He looked like he was in his early to mid-30s, maybe a few inches taller than me, around 5'8", and he had brown hair. His dirty orange cut-off shirt and brown boots made me think that he was in construction, but who knows? All I know is that he was weird in a way that I can't put my finger on. After I walked away, I went to the complete opposite end of the store and kept looking around me. He was nowhere to be found for the next 20 minutes or so that I went shopping, so I thought that I was just overreacting. I started heading towards the checkout area, and once I got to the lines, I saw him standing right next to the refrigerators next to the checkout. He was staring at me. He had one item in his hand, so after we made eye contact, he walked towards the self-checkout area, and I did a 180-degree and headed for the longest line that I could find, thinking that I could wait him out. It took about 20 minutes to get through the checkout, and I dragged my feet walking out of the store, making sure that the guy wasn't waiting for me in the store. With him nowhere to be seen, I picked up the pace, and once I got outside, I started to think that I was being irrational. He wasn't unattractive. He gave off no signs of actually being dangerous. I must be crazy, right? Walking towards my car, I saw a brown worker's truck waiting close to the exit start to drive around the parking lot once I stepped out of the store. I didn't think much of this truck at that time because I had thought that the guy had left, and at that point I just wanted to get to my car because it was raining. I finished packing my trunk when this same truck started to pull through the spot diagonal of mine, slowly inching into the spot right next to my car so that my driver's side was right next to the truck's driver's side. I heard the guy's voice say, "Excuse me," as I opened my car door. I quickly slid in, hoping that I could just get away with him thinking that I didn't hear him. I locked the door, turned the car on, and quickly turned it into reverse. I started pulling out, but before I could get far, the brown truck pulled forward and moved diagonally right behind my car, so that I couldn't back up without hitting his car entirely. I looked in front of me and realized, with a car in front of me, there was no way that I was going to just drive out of there with no issues. I turned my head and saw the guy sitting in his truck with his window rolled down. I decided to roll down my window and ask, "What's up?" in a hostile tone. He began saying, "I just saw you in the store, and you are absolutely beautiful. I just had to tell you." "Oh, thank you," I said, praying that he didn't get out of his vehicle. "I couldn't let myself walk away without asking for your number so that I can take you out," he told me. I picked up my hand with my wedding ring and told him, "I'm married." As he began to respond, I rolled up my window and stared at my steering wheel, waiting for him to move his truck. I couldn't stand to look in his direction because I felt his eyes on me. So after what seemed like the longest minute, I heard him finally move his truck. I peeled out of there in a heartbeat. The guy might have had great intentions. He might have been genuine, but I got a dark and heavy vibe that didn't sit right with me. So, guy at Walmart, who blocked me into my spot to ask me out, let's not meet again.
Another creepy Walmart encounter by username ClaireEmpathJ7. I went to Walmart today with two of my friends. I made a return, then went back to see the Halloween decor. As we go, we see this man, a good-looking man in a nice suit. He looks like he really doesn't belong in Walmart. He looks at me, stops for a second in the middle of the walk path, then keeps walking and takes out his phone. Now, I thought maybe he just knew me, Like I reminded him of someone, or maybe he found me attractive. I didn't think anything of it, till I was in the electronics section and I was by myself for a moment. My friends had gone to another section. I was looking at earphones, and I happened to look up for a second, and he was standing there, acting like he was looking at something, then looking at me. He smiled at me as our eyes met and started walking towards me, but he kept looking around. A very weird feeling came over me. I quickly turned and went to go find my friends. I moved quickly and found them in the dog food section. I quickly told them and they said I was probably just paranoid, but we would all stay together just in case. I nodded, but that feeling never went away. I was on edge the rest of the trip. I kept sensing him. I passed him at least 4 more times throughout the trip, and then nothing. My friends felt that he was definitely following us around now and went to check out. When we were walking to my friend's car and he went by in a black Escalade, we put all the bags in the car quickly and put the cart away and hopped in the car. We waited to make sure he was gone. We were so freaked out. We didn't go back to their apartment for a couple of hours, but went to Red Robin in case he was going to follow us home. We made it back, and we are never going to that Walmart again. I haven't been that creeped out in forever. I hope to never see that man again.
This just happened. I woke up pretty early this morning, so I decided to get a leg up on the day. I quickly washed up and then I headed to Walmart. I had got there 10 minutes before they opened, so I spent a few minutes driving in circles around the parking lot, debating which side I wanted to park on, and I parked in the center of both entrances. Walking around Walmart, I heard a wolf whistle when I was in the hair section. I looked around but only saw workers stocking the shelves. They were in their conversation, so I know it wasn't them. And so I carried on. This is a supercenter Walmart. It's pretty big, and the hair section is on the opposite side of the food section. So I crossed through a bunch of miscellaneous aisles, grabbing a few different things along the way. When I arrived to the dairy section, I heard the whistle again. This time I ignored it again, and they whistled. I went to another aisle and I heard the whistle once, and I was about to move on to the next. The store wasn't completely empty, but I could not see who was doing it. I last heard the whistle when I was in the last aisle of the food section. I didn't bother to look. I checked out, and before leaving, I grabbed my knife and had my keys in my hand, along with my pepper spray and these pointy knuckle rings locked in my fingers. I threw my shit in my car, and on my way to the driver's door, I heard the whistle and saw a car lights turn on me. I continued into my car and I was about to take my mask and beanie off, but I figured it would be smarter to keep it on. He drove slowly by me, peering into my car and trying to get a look at my face. This dude was a psycho because I walked around Walmart in my beanie and mask on, and I had a hoodie on as well. This dude literally saw nothing of me and was following me around Walmart, whistling.
Target Creep by username Erica from Space. I, 30, female, but passed a 16 at a museum recently and got child pricing, live walking distance from a Target. It's one that carries groceries, so it's super convenient. I often walk there several times a week to grab something I'm missing. This occurred a few months ago in June. I was walking back towards the produce section when I noticed a man kinda standing in the aisle idling. Like in a really bad spot. A three-way intersection, if you will. I noticed him and remember having the passing thought of him just looking like a stereotypical creep. Thought it was just an intrusive thought and carried on. Didn't want to judge. I grabbed a 12-pack of ginger ale cans, which is somewhat adjacent to the produce section, and started walking back. He's still standing in the same spot, and now he's staring at me. I made direct eye contact to let him know he ain't slick. I grabbed some avocados and still noticed him staring at me. I carried about my business and went to the self-checkout section. I paid for my items, bagged them, and picked my head up to head out. There he was, standing between me and the exit. "Excuse me," he said. "Yes?" "How much were those avocados?" "I don't know, but I'm sure it was advertised. I needed them regardless, so I didn't check." "Oh, I had purchased some recently, and the price rang up as more than the advertised price." "Oh, okay. Are you a student?" "No," and I kinda backed out of the conversation at that point. Mind you, he had purchased nothing. He was 100% there to scope out his victims. I was in the moment and not processing it, so I didn't report it to anyone. After this, I had to walk back to my apartment alone. I tried to call anyone I could think of, and of course no one answered, lol. I put on my front-facing camera to give myself a rear-view mirror of sorts and the illusion of speaking with someone actively, and I made sure no one was following me on my way to my apartment. I never walk there alone at night, and to make matters worse, I was there a few weeks ago, and some man aggressively turned the corner into an aisle uncomfortably close to me, and it triggered me so bad as if he was following me. Turned out he was just walking quickly past me, paying zero mind to me. Sucks that we have to be so paranoid.
Followed in Target by u/coldad8932. I, a 29-year-old female, often go to Target near my office during my lunch break. I either go to pick up stuff for the office or I go to pick up stuff for my apartment. I also just like to browse the aisles to unwind. On this particular day, I went just to browse. I was looking through the dollar store section near the entrance when a woman around my age approached me and asked, "Hey, I love your shoes. Where did you get it?" And I told her, "Oh, thank you." I then mentioned the name of the store that I bought my shoes from. Then she looked at me with her face scrunched and said, "You look so familiar. Did we go to school together?" She seemed genuine enough, but she looked super unfamiliar to me, so I just responded with no. She looked a little taken aback by this and then quickly said, "Well, my mistake. Have a good day." And then began looking at something on the shelves behind me. After about a minute or so, I decided to move on to the snack aisle. I was looking at some chips until I noticed the same woman at the end of the aisle holding something and looking at me. When I turned to look at her, she looked back down at the bag of candy that was in her hands. At this point, I didn't think anything of it. If anything, I had assumed that she was still trying to place me as someone she knew. It wasn't until 3 to 4 aisles later, when I kept catching her looking at me, that something began to feel off. I walked over the cleaning section to see if she would follow me, and I noticed her again. This Target was particularly busy, so I felt okay approaching her. I asked her why she was following me, and she replied, "No, of course I'm not. I'm just shopping around." With a smile on her face, I told her that it was making me feel uncomfortable because it felt like she was. She then stated that it was just a coincidence. I didn't want to press it any further, so I told her that if I saw her again, then I would be telling Target security and will be asking them to escort me to my Uber. Note, I actually drive my own car, but I didn't want her to know that if she didn't already. A few minutes later, I saw her following me again, and without hesitation, I told her that I was going to speak with an employee about her. And when I began walking up to a store employee, I saw the woman walking back to the store's exit to leave. Or so I thought. The employee stated that they couldn't kick the lady out since she hasn't done really anything, but that I could have someone walk me to my car if I wanted. And after about 10 minutes or so, after I had completed my purchase at checkout, I went over to the customer service to have someone escort me to my car. And I saw the woman in the clothing section speaking to another young woman and gave her the same line that she gave to me. "Did we go to school together? You look so familiar." I have no idea what her end goal was, but it definitely gave me the creeps. Welcome to Miss Creepy Tales Riddle Time. If you know the answer, feel free to leave it in the comments, and the winner gets to be featured in the next video. The person who built it sold it. The person who bought it never used it. The person who used it Never saw it. What is it? And here are the top comments from my last video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.